Hi, and welcome to That's What She Said, the podcast where Gen X and older women share the insights, stories, and hard earned wisdom that can help Gen Z women navigate life, work, and everything in between. We talk about the stuff that no one tells you: success, setbacks, pleasure, power, so that you can own your choices and create the life that you want on your own terms. So let's dive in today. Have you ever stepped into a new role or a big opportunity and felt the expectations were bigger than your confidence? Maybe you've wondered if you could lead, if you belonged, or if anyone would take you seriously, especially as a woman in a field where few might look like you. That uncertainty is certainly real, and it's something many young women face at the very start of their careers. My guest today, Gail Quirk, knows that feeling firsthand. She joined the Navy as a young recruit and quickly found herself in leadership roles, mentoring teams and navigating high stakes environments where every decision mattered. Along the way, she faced life altering challenges, including serious health setbacks, and yet she kept moving forward, growing as a leader, stepping into her role as a woman, and lifting others along the way. Today, Gail shares her lessons from a career defined by resilience, courage, and service. Her story reminds us that leadership isn't about having it all figured out. It's about showing up, learning as you go, and creating impact even when the path is unclear. So, for any young woman wondering if she can lead, if she can do it, if she can make an impact and navigate challenges with confidence, this episode is for you. Hi, Gail.
Hi.
I'm so
Thank
glad
you
you
for
could be
having
here.
me.
Absolutely. So I thought we'd start just kind of in a general way by asking you the question: what do you think is the hardest challenge facing young women today?
Being able to stick with the plan that they had initially.
What do you mean by that?
And sometimes we have a plan in mind, and then life throws us a curve,
Hmm.
or we have friends that aren't going the same way that we're going. But we just have to stick with the plan in mind. But we also have to choose friends that are on the same trajectory as we are.
Mm,
Because sometimes your friends don't wanna see you succeed or leave you behind, and
mm,
so they can kinda pull you down with them to say, "Hey, don't leave me, don't leave me." They're not saying that out loud, but
right.
they're saying that by the actions and the things that they do. So you just kinda have to stick with the plan.
Got it. When do you remember experiencing that situation in your own life?
Um, Actually, I think, I experienced that when I was, um, 12.
Oh,
I had
wow.
a friend who I thought was a friend, and she didn't wanna see me succeed at becoming a cheerleader. And so I didn't succeed. I realized that, "Hey, this is something that I really wanted." So I evaluated the situation, and I stuck with the plan that I had. And the next year, not only did I become head cheerleader, but I also became student body president. Um, and she stayed where she was. She didn't grow. As I continued to grow throughout the years of middle school and high school, she did not grow.
Mm,
And so that's why I mean, some friends can hold you back or try to hold you down, and you just have to keep the plan in mind for yourself.
got it. Now, when you first joined the Navy, did you ever experience that during those years? Because my assumption is it was incredibly demanding. Looking at that time in our history and in the military, were there a lot of women in the Navy with you at that time?
There were a lot of women in the military, yes. However, um, it seemed that some just went in to get a husband, right?
Really?
Um,
Okay.
and not stay very long. They had no goals in mind. I had a goal to go in and complete my education and continue moving forward. What I thought was a girlfriend in the Navy, my first duty station, and we were going to trudge through life together. But whenever I got promoted and she did not like that. And so it really kind of upset me, but it didn't squash my dreams. I kept moving forward. And after her first enlistment, she decided to get out because she didn't accomplish the things that she wanted to accomplish or that she thought she was going to accomplish because she didn't get promoted. But like I said, we all have to work hard. And some people think that they can get by on their looks to get them over, and that doesn't always pay.
Right. It must be a hard experience to realize someone you believed not only that you could trust, but that would be by your side through something like your early career in the military, and then realize that she wasn't going to be a permanent part of your life. How did you make that shift from understanding that sometimes our friendships are temporary and they give us what we need in the moment, but may not be long term? What was that like for you?
It was really hard. It hurt, right? Because everybody wants a friend. And so I just decided that I was going to stick with the plan. See, we
Mm,
always have a plan, or we should have a plan. And I stuck with the plan of why did I join? I joined to finish my education. So I stuck with the plan. I enrolled in school and I finished my degree. She, on the other hand, did not.
mhm,
She ended up getting out, and really, it was like a setback for her. She went in and did what? Did nothing really because she didn't accomplish anything more than what she had done if she had not come in.
got it.
So sometimes people don't have a plan or don't stick with the plan. So I always say, set your goals, set your
Mm.
plan. People come in your life and they go in your life, but you have to stick with your plan.
Now, even in your early career, you were tasked with leading and mentoring others, which I know you continue to this day. Was that part of the plan, or did that become something that you built into the plan as you gained experience?
That was something that the military, as you climb in rank, the military assigns you more and more responsibility. And so you end up being in charge of people under you as you
Mhm,
climb in rank. And so I did not realize that that was going to be my ultimate goal was to be in charge of other
hmm,
people. But, as the time kept going on and I kept climbing in rank, I, I got more responsibility of other people. So it was more of a challenge. And sometimes more of a challenge because you have men who feel, well, why are you doing this?
yeah.
And I was like, because I've been put in charge. And so that's why I'm doing this. Yeah.
How did you navigate when there was that pushback from men?
It was difficult because I felt that, hey, you know what? You're here and I'm here. You're the same rank as I might be, but it doesn't mean that we can't work together. Sometimes it didn't want to work with me. Sometimes the men would get together and talk and say things, but my faith in God and my faith in myself helped me get through it. And as they would see me struggle and get through it, then they were like, "Hey, I think I really want to be on your team." And I was like, "Well, you're so welcome to be on my team." They would watch each other falter behind, and they're like, "Well, why didn't we listen to you in the beginning?" And I'm like, "You know what? It doesn't really matter. We can all get through this together." And so I think I was really good at putting a team together, and I
Mhm,
showed them that, hey, if we work as a team, we can get in here and out of here quicker than if we work as an individual. And
right.
so that helped people.
So you proved yourself by just doing what you knew from your skills, from your instincts. You let them see
Right,
why you were in the role you were in, why they should let you lead instead of telling them, is what I'm
right.
hearing you.
Actions speak louder than words.
Mhm,
And so I was in there working just as hard right beside them. I didn't say, "Hey, I'm a woman." I got right beside them, and so they saw that, "Hey,
mhm.
you're working just as hard as us. Well, why don't we just work that hard together?" And so it worked out.
Now, you said leading others hadn't been part of your original plan. And for many people in general, but certainly women, often when leadership positions and opportunities come up, they don't feel ready. How did you step into leadership maybe before you actually felt ready?
That's a good question. I watched people before that were senior to me, and I watched how they behaved and what the things that they did. I took some of the good and some of the bad with me as I climbed the ladder and made sure that, hey, I could do this. I also would ask some of my junior troops their opinions because we
Okay.
can't always do this by ourselves.
Mhm.
Some people think, well, we're going to do it my way, and my way is the only way. But as young people are coming up, they know just as much as we do sometimes about technology and things of that nature. So I would ask them, well, what do you think? And then I would reevaluate and we would come to a conclusion and then we would move forward. Now,
Mm.
I'm ultimately held responsible if it would go wrong, but we would work together and do it as a team.
So you took an intergenerational approach to building your own leadership because you
Right,
watched people with more experience and you didn't model yourself completely after them. You just took what made sense for you or what resonated with you. And then you also moved in the opposite direction, taking things up from the generations below you to really create your style of leadership. Is that accurate?
right. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
One of the other things that you and I have never really talked about is, your experience in the military as a woman and as a woman of color. Was that ever something that created challenges for you?
Yes.
I didn't want to assume, Gail, but
Yes. Um, and the field that I originated in, they had never in the Navy had Black photographers in front of people. And so I was one of the first. And so at photography A school, my instructor did not like me because of the color of my skin and because I got photography A school right after boot camp. And so she tried to kick me out. They had a thing called Black Monday where they were kicking blacks out just because they were black. So I had this bosun mate chief who was in charge of the school as far as the cleanliness and things like that. He said, "This sailor is an outstanding sailor. She's got room of the week. She's got uniform of the week. She's an outstanding sailor. I'm not going to have you kick her out. I will take this to Washington." So they decided not to kick me out. They decided to keep me to put me back with another instructor. So they did. I graduated and I moved on. But later on, I ended up going for E7 in the military. I started off as an E3, ended up going to I was the very first Black E7 female chief in the Navy. There had never been one before me. And so I was like, wow, I can't believe it.
that's
So I would
incredible.
walk down the hallways of the school because I was an instructor and the kids would touch me. And I'm like, why are they touching me? This is weird. And they're like, we've never had one before. We just want to touch you and have you rub off on us.
Huh.
And so I would have even friends saying, okay, now you have to move up so you can make room for us because you're the first one. We need to have you move up so we can make it after you. Well, I had several friends make it after me. And then I became the first Black female officer in my field. And so one time I went to a conference and I walked in and all the men in the room stood up and started clapping. And I'm like, why are you doing this? And
Oh,
they
wow.
were like, because we've never had a Black female officer in this field. And I'm like, but I'm so embarrassed. Please sit down. Please sit down. And they were like, "No, they need to know that you're the very first one." And I was the very first one, and I was the very last one because they did away with my field after me.
Oh, you said you were embarrassed. Why were you embarrassed, do you think?
Because I don't like attention on me. I'm just fine being in the background, doing the work.
Behind the lens.
Yes, I'm good. I'm just leave me alone.
Oh,
But to walk in and to have everyone stand up, that was just kind of overwhelming. And it was an eye opener because I didn't know that I was the only one or the first one. I didn't know that. So it
oh,
was
wow.
really, yeah, it was really kind of an eye opener for me too.
Huh.
Yeah.
So that perspective of not wanting attention on you, does that make it made it harder to be a leader? Because sometimes all the attention is on the leader. How did you manage that?
Well, you always have to be aware of everything that you do
Mm,
outside of your home because everyone's watching you. So, as an Air Force Colonel female told me, you have to always be on guard because everyone's watching what you do and emulating what you do. So, you have to be
mm,
that much better than everyone else because you're setting the role model for others to follow.
yes.
I've always had to make sure that my hair is great, my nails are great, my uniform is great. Everything was what it was supposed to be. My language was great. My mannerisms were great because everyone's watching what I do, good, bad, or indifferent. So I had to make sure if I went out, I couldn't overdrink, because everybody's watching me
Mm,
and and they could take it back to whomever. Right? So always had to remember, hey, you're setting a role model. And so you have to stand head above everyone else in order
yeah,
to make sure that they know that they've got to do it that way. And because everybody's always watching you.
right. And I think that's a challenge that I hear from a lot of female leaders and certainly female leaders of color who say scrutiny is on us. They're
Yes.
watching and with more attention to how we might screw up, how we really aren't qualified.
Right.
And so there is that higher level of attention, again, from the female leader's perspective of, "I have to be above reproach," which is a lot of pressure. Did you
It
ever
really
feel
is.
that pressure?
I think my faith in God helped me deal with the pressure. Because I have a very strong faith in God and God would help me. A lot. And
Mhm.
so God said, "You know what, Gail, you can do this." And then I had a very good home life. My daughter was so good. "Mommy, you can do it. You
Aw.
can do it." And so she was always so strong. And my husband was always strong for me too, that you can do it. I've got your back. Shine my shoes or iron my uniform or make sure that I was always squared away. So I was always meticulous when I walked out the door. I've always had help from the home front as well.
So you've got that external supports, whether it's faith, whether it's family, and then selecting the right friends and mentors around you
Right,
to help you in that
right.
journey. Got it.
'Cause you never know. You think you select the right friends, but there's people that wish you well to your face, but they
Mm,
really don't mean to wish you well because they're jealous, and sometimes I just didn't understand whether be a man or a woman that would be jealous of. For example, when I, made E7, there were 23 males and 2 females that made E7 at the same time. The other female that made it with me, she's now my best friend. But the male that made it with me in this where I was teaching, he said to me, "How did you make it?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?" He says, "Well, how did you make it?" And I was like, "Well,
mm,
I had the qualifications to make it." "Well, you never said that you did this, 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 this." "Well, did you say?" I don't walk around telling people what I do, I just
right.
do it. Then let my accolades speak for themselves. I don't have to tell you what my accolades are. I just do them. So people really sometimes don't want the best for you.
You talked about some of the adversities in regards being a woman of color, friendships that didn't work out, but you also had some health issues. during your career, and most significantly, a brain tumor when you're on active duty. What did that experience teach you about facing adversity and still moving forward, still functioning as a leader or representing leadership?
When I was in Iceland, and I realized there's something going wrong. I'm running 6 miles a day. I'm not eating a whole lot, and I'm still gaining weight. There's something wrong.
Mhm.
And I couldn't understand it. And the doctors are like, "Well, just push away from the table." And so when I came back to the United States, I had a doctor and I said, "There's something wrong. I don't know what's wrong. Please check me out." So he found out that I had a pituitary adenoma. And I was like, "What's that?" He said, "That's a brain tumor." And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
okay. What are we going to do?" He says, "Well, we're going to have to go and take it out." Well, the first thing that the doctor said was, "This is not a tumor that's commonly found in Black people." And I was like, "That's really beside the point. We really need to talk about getting it out."
Right,
When they told me about that, I was like, "Well, at least you found something, okay? You're relieved that they found something. Now what are you gonna do about it? We're gonna
right.
take it out." Well, then I had my faith. I went back to my faith and said, "God, you've got this." I did not stop working. I worked really hard. 'Cause I remember we commissioned the Harry S. Truman on the day before my brain tumor was to be removed, and President Clinton came on board, and I had been his photographer all around, and so I was his photographer that day, and then the next day, I had my brain tumor removed because life is not gonna stop for me until God says it's gonna stop for me. And so I kept pushing forward. No one came to visit me in the hospital, not a soul, because I did not tell anybody that I had a brain tumor. All
Oh,
I told was my boss,
oh my
because
god.
I just didn't want any sympathy. I just wanted everybody to know that, "Hey, she's working hard, she's working hard, she's working hard." I didn't want any sympathy. I just wanted to keep working. I had I think, 6 weeks off, and I came back to work, and I hit the ground running because I was like, "I need to get promoted." In the Navy, if you're on a ship and you don't get certain qualifications, when you're up for the next rank, they will say, "She was on a ship and she didn't take advantage
Oh,
of
okay.
the time being on the ship,
Mm,
so why should we promote her?" So now I needed to get those qualifications because I felt, "Hey, I'm 6 weeks behind. I need to get those qualifications." So I jumped right in it, got those qualifications, got dual qualified. So when it was time for me to go up for the next rank, I could do that. Well, everyone thought that the guy who took over for me while I was gone, and I let him keep it after I came back, that he was gonna get promoted over me, but he wasn't dual qualified. I got promoted over him, and he was really upset. And I was like, "Well, you know what? I worked really hard before
right.
I gave it to you, so it's my turn." And there were more things in my background that I had done that he had not done, that he did not realize that I had done. I just kept persevering,
Yeah.
and I had my faith in God. Um, and at the same time, with my brain tumor, my grandmother passed. So
Oh.
I was like, "Okay, God, you've got me. I can only do but so much. You've got me." And he did. He had me. I was there for my family. I came back to work and I just kept pushing forward because
Hmm.
that's all you can do.
So, if younger women are listening and they're facing a challenge right now or something that is really creating stress in their lives, what would you tell them from your experience?
Don't forget your faith. A lot of us forget our faith, and I did too. I
Oh,
forgot my faith. Um,
how old were
but
you when that happened?
when I was in my 20s,
Okay.
in my 20s, trying to figure life out, um, kind of thing. And God swings you back around and said, "No, you can't do it without me." And I
Mhm.
realized, yeah, I can't do it without you. Because at 29, I was a widow. I had to handle life. I was like, God, I got married at 26 and I've got it all together. I'm married. I'm in the military. He's in the military. We're going to be good. And boom, he dies after 2.5 years of marriage. And I'm thinking,
Oh my gosh,
What
Gail.
am I gonna do? And I had to put it all together and figure it out and keep moving. So, as a young person, find someone that you can honestly talk with because everybody needs that one good soul searching person that's going to have your back. But someone that's going to uplift you, not tear you down. Um,
Who is
and
that person for you?
I'm going to say it was my grandmother.
Mm,
Yeah. My grandma was always there and she always had my back. She only had a fifth grade education,
hmm.
right? But she gave me the perseverance to keep going forward. And she was always there for me through adversity. Um, when my late husband was sick, she came to help me take care of him so I could keep working on my master's and keep working. She came
Huh.
and took care of him. So yeah, it was my grandma. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because as I was doing some promos for the podcast, and I would go down to St. Pete's and Tampa with my 21-year-old daughter, and we would ask women her age two questions. And the second question is, if you could ask one person for advice, who would it be? And honestly, Gail, I thought it was going to be, we got some of the expected ones: Michelle Obama, Princess Diana, Frida
Oh,
Kahlo. We got some good ones. But the majority of young women said their mom, their grandmother, and aunts. They said female relatives that were older than them. And I have to tell you, even saying it now, I'm getting goosebumps because to me, that's so impactful that when we're thinking, oh, these girls want to hear from these famous people, they want to hear from the people within their spaces. And you're saying the same thing, that it was your grandmother that gave you the strength when sometimes the days were hard. And I love hearing that.
because they've been through it already, some type of struggle, right? And they still kept going.
Mm,
And so they can help you, lift you up and keep you going. And so I thought she was just amazing. Now I'm 5'10" and my granny was 4'11",
oh my gosh.
you know, but she kept me going. That you can do it, you can do it, you can do anything. And so I was like, "You're right, I can do anything." Now, there were times where I think I don't know how I did it because I would
Mm,
exist off of 4 hours of sleep, sometimes because I was a drill sergeant and I was pregnant and I was getting my master's but it was time management. I learned time management, and we don't need to go to those parties that we think we need to go to, and we don't need that purse that we need. We don't need that vacation that we need to just stick with our goals, stick with our plan, and at the end of the tunnel, there's a light, and once you reach that light, life is golden. But you just gotta stick with your plan. Because some people put other things ahead of their goals, and that vacation, it'll be there. You
mm.
know, that party, there'll be others. Just stick with the plan and do your plan. Because nobody else can do your plan for you.
That's a good point. For women who are trying to step into some of the spaces you've been in, these male dominated spaces, or when they are, a minority in the room and not just because they're female, what what wisdom would you give them? What lesson would you share with them about taking up or creating their space in areas where they're underrepresented?
I learned this in Hawaii when I was stationed out there, and I was often the only female in the room. Not the only minority, but the only female in the room. I learned to have my eyes open, my ears open, and my mouth shut so I could listen to what was going on around me.
Mhm.
Um, because a lot of the times they don't want to hear what we have to say at that moment.
Okay.
Then I found someone in the room, which was one of my civilian employees. And I would ask him a question later. What were they really saying this? And he would say, yes. And I was
Hmm.
saying, well, what about this idea? And he would say, that's a great idea. And then he would take my great idea back to the group.
As his
So
own or as yours?
as mine, he's like,
Okay.
well, I was
Great.
talking to Lieutenant Klein, was my name at the time. I was talking to Lieutenant Klein. And her suggestion was this, well, what do you think? So it was my suggestion coming out of a male's mouth, but it was still my suggestion. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
how it got approached. It just still got out there.
Right.
So you don't always have to interject your opinions right away. You can
Mhm.
kind of hold back and listen, and then find that certain someone, if you feel you need to still say it, and let them just ask them a question. But my favorite saying is a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So you can still say what you need to say if it's that important to someone that is willing to hear it. And then if they feel that, well, that really is not what they're saying and that's not really valuable, but hold on to it, then that was fine. So you didn't overexert yourself or make a fool of yourself in front of a bunch of people that
Mhm.
you didn't need to. I sat back a lot and just kind of read the room with generals and admirals where I was just a new little lieutenant sitting back. And it helped. It helped. And then they would say, well, Patsy, because my last name was Klein, what do you think? And then I would interject and give my opinion. So I listened. I listened. I listened. And sometimes I would listen, and some people would make silly comments, and I would watch how
Mhm.
others would react. So you don't always have to force yourself on people. The same happened when I retired and I became the very first minority board chairman for the Boys and Girls Club in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm tired of being the first. I really am done." But, and I was the only woman in the room and all these men, and I was like, "Oh, okay, here we go, but I can do this. I can do this." And so I sat again and I listened, and then I would interject if I needed to. And I thought, well, the military has prepared me for this situation that I never expected.
Mm.
Because my
How
dad
so?
was
How did the
I'm sorry?
military prepare you?
Because I had been in a room full of men like that before
Got it. Mhm.
that were speaking, 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 but not really want to hear from me until they felt they were ready to hear from me. My
Mhm.
dad had been on the same board, but not on the big board that I was on. And I was like, "Dad, you've been on this board for years. How come you?" He said, "Because it's your turn, honey." And I
Mhm.
was like, "Wow, okay." And so I do remember they were interviewing for an accountant and they were interviewing women. And I heard them say, and it upset me so much. They said, well, she's not huggable, which meant she wasn't attractive. And so I was like, wow,
Okay.
because th- men still think that way.
Mm.
Even though you're qualified up and down the board, they still think about, hey, is she pleasing to look at?
Right.
And I came home and told my husband, I said, that really upset me today. I said, I'll get over it tomorrow, but that really upset me today. And I could not believe, but that it's a man's world. So we have to just sit back and realize it's still a man's world, even though they let us in sometimes. It's still a world, and but we have to not get upset visibly at that moment. We can get in our car later and get upset later, go home and get upset later, but not right there in front of them.
Hmm. It's such an important topic because again, in my interactions with Gen Z women and young millennials, there's a pressure to speak up, speak out, be loud, be vocal. Don't let anything just, slip by. And while I and they know the importance of that, you're creating a different or a slightly different perspective of, yeah, that's all important, but sometimes it's also important to hold your place, to listen, to figure out when your voice is going to be most powerful, have the most impact. And maybe it's not right in the moment. And you get a choice as a woman. You get to choose, is that the moment that I'm going to be assertive and let them know that either that's not acceptable or, "Hey, here's my idea," or whatever it might be? Or can you have more influence if you choose a different time or by working through an advocate in the case that you talked about with that male who brought your idea forward? And I don't think we talk about this very often because there's so much, as you said, in a man's world that is holding back women and making it difficult for women still after all this time. And so we're teaching these younger generations, including my daughter's generation, like, no, be out there and just do it in the moment. And I know it creates a lot of stress for them and a lot of pressure, and sometimes that's not their way, and it's okay if it's not their way because there are other ways to make a change and make an influence. And I love that you provided an option for them where you still had influence and you still called things out, but you did it in a way that worked for your style of leadership.
Yeah, and I had a girlfriend, and she's still a great friend of mine today. She is. She's just like your daughter and my daughter, out there, out there. And so they were discussing her and whether she should be promoted or not.
Mm.
And they said no, because she's so loud, she's so vocal, and we don't want someone like that. We don't like her overbearingness. And so she didn't get selected.
Do you think it was because she wasn't a woman and they defined her as overbearing, or the position was not appropriate for anybody who was overbearing?
No, because she was a woman, and she's always been a person to try to get her point across, regardless of how you felt about it or not. Her points were valid. She just didn't care about being overbearing.
Mhm.
She's that way to this day, and I love her for being that way. So she has a hard time with men in general, but with getting promoted as well. Sometimes it warrants read the room.
Yeah.
If you see someone else being vocal like that in the room and it's not being taken very well, then you as an individual step back and it's not time for you to be that way as well. Don't join in on that bandwagon.
So it's so
Yeah,
frustrating because I wish we had already created a world where women can just be who they are with authenticity and genuineness without having to think, okay, but what's my goal? Is my goal to advance my career? Is my goal to have my ideas come forward? And if I use this approach, does that serve my goal? And I do believe women more than men have to weigh that, whereas men have more of the luxury of just saying things and doing things and be who they are because men will be
right.
men. And I just wish our world had already evolved to the point where women didn't have to always have this constant narrative in their head of, okay, that's how I would normally do it. Is that going to work? Does that suit the purpose of what I'm trying to do? But it doesn't sound like that's changed much. And again, women, younger women, any women could have the choices. It's just sometimes you're choosing to speak out and be assertive, and it's gonna be contrary to your ultimate goal, and that just
I
sucks.
I tell my
It's really
daughter,
bad.
it's all in your delivery. You can deliver it in a way that's palatable for people to receive it. It's all in your delivery and your tone. And you can be heard. But some people get so passionate about how they deliver it that it falls on deaf ears.
So, if there was one piece of wisdom that you would want younger generations of women to have, whether they're feeling uncertain or feeling undervalued or feeling like they're stretched too thin or they're not ready, what would that one piece of information be?
I'd say stick with your plan. Stick with your goal.
That's been a consistent theme.
If you stop your train in the middle of the track, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to be
Mhm.
in the middle of the track. So you have to keep moving forward to accomplish your goals. I'm sure there's things that happen along the way, as they did with me, but you keep pushing forward and keep
Yes,
moving forward because that's life. Life is not going to stop just because you stop. So
right.
you keep moving forward and stay positive. Um, I remember when my late husband was dying and people would say, "How are you doing?" I could have said, "I'm just horrible." But
Yeah.
I walked around and I said, "I'm blessed. I am blessed every day." And people were like, Wow, you just stayed so
Yeah.
positive. And I was like, "You know what? There's nothing else to do."
What you're describing, Gail, certainly we can describe it as being positive. But you made the choice to focus on the areas of your life that were bringing you joy or that you were blessed with. Because yes, you easily could have focused on the misery and the sadness,
Mm.
and I'm sure there were moments that you let yourself feel whatever was going on that side of your life, but your choice was, "I'm gonna still focus on the other good parts of my life, even though I'm in the middle of one of the hardest things." And I think that's so important because it's not just that you have to live in a world of rainbows and unicorns, but you can choose where you focus your energy, where you focus your thoughts, and
Yeah,
then
glad
that's
yeah.
what the emotions, come from.
Glass half full, not half empty.
Oh my goodness, I've loved all of this, and I could talk to you for hours more easily, but I have some rapid fire questions that I end every interview with. Do you mind if I ask them to you?
Okay.
What's your go-to power woman song?
I got a new attitude.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
What's one life hack or tip that you use?
I have the serenity prayer up in my house, and so I often go to that saying there's things I can change and there's things
Mhm.
that I cannot change. And the things that I can change, I do, but the things I cannot change, I just have to just roll with it.
What's one of your favorite books?
I read Summer on Sag Harbor by
Oh,
Sunny Hostin. Have you heard of her?
I've not.
Oh, it was a good read. I did not realize that there were as many wealthy Black people in America, and I read this book and I was like, "Wow, I
Oh,
wanna go up there to Sag Harbor and just see it and enjoy it and have a good time." So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
What's one belief you had to unlearn?
But this one was hard because I'm divorced and now remarried, but it was okay to be divorced and to get
Mm,
out of an abusive, bad marriage, that God's not gonna stop loving me because I left a bad marriage, that He's still gonna love me. And there is no need for anyone to stay in a verbally, physically abusive marriage just because you feel that God's gonna look down on you because you got divorced. And I was doing that.
I get that. So you and I have talked that, we're both 3 times married and mine were 2 divorces, and I that was a similar belief that I had learned in regards to that my family would be disappointed, that my parents would look lesser of me. And do I stay even though I'm incredibly unhappy and the alignment was completely off, or there were just some really toxic things about the relationship? And one of my proudest moments was the first time my mom, and she did it several times after that, but she introduced me to one of her new friends, and she said, "And this is my daughter Robin, she has her doctorate, and she's divorced." And I paused, and later on I said, "Mom, why would you say that?"
Say that.
And she said, "Because I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that you had the education and the wherewithal to leave something that wasn't serving you." And I think
Aw.
it's something I just think everybody should hear, and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." I didn't expect that was gonna be her answer, and she repeatedly did it, and every time she did, I'd grin because I was like, "Now I know why." So I understand that.
Aw,
Yeah,
that's sweet.
yeah,
That's
she was
sweet.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, what's something you do every day to take care of yourself?
I work out.
You do. I do know that. Good for you. Did you do that in your 20s as well?
I did.
Oh, it was something that you carried through. That's amazing.
Yes. I
Okay.
just because we're older doesn't mean that we shouldn't take care of our bodies. I I think that if you don't use it, you lose it. You have to keep moving, and so I continue to keep moving.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
And then what's something that you are excited about that's coming up?
Well, I'm excited to have grandchildren one day. Yay. One day.
What are you looking forward to about being a grandmother?
Doing it differently,
Mm.
and hoping that they, appreciate their Gigi and love their Gigi, um, and can't wait for my daughter to say, "Ugh, mom, was I like that?" And I say, "Yes."
I hear you on that one. Oh, well, Gail, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your time and just your transparency, especially sharing them for women who are building their lives and this amazing world that we can make changes in. But I'll make sure to add more details about you and your life and the amazing
Oh,
mentorship and volunteer work that you do. So if women are interested, they might be able to follow in your footsteps. And certainly to all of you who are listening, take what you heard today, carry what matters to you, and pass the wisdom forward. Because when women speak, the world changes. Thanks for listening and see you next time on That's What She Said.
thank you.
Follow That's What She Said on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. That's What She Said is created, hosted, and executive produced by Dr. Robin Buckley. Our Senior VP of Productions and Content Strategy Consultant is Dr. Tom Grabowski. Jordan Gilbert is our show's Marketing and Creative Content Specialist. Senior Producer is Quentin Sukup. And remember to keep the conversation going. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're a woman who's lived it or a woman who's building it.